Hey, this is Dave. I thought we'd do a little reloading video, and I gotta apologize for all the noise behind me because my reloading room here is down here in the utility room of our basement. But what I thought I'd talk about is using unknown powders, using an unknown powder to reload with. And I just happen to have a lot of 9mm loaded rounds, and they're some sort of Egyptian manufacturer that made these, and the primers are bad in these, and I actually found these in the trash can at my local range. So there was like 600 of these 9mm in the trash can, and I just couldn't bring myself to let those lay there, because I know if nothing else, we've got these 117 grain full metal jacketed bullets, and those could be salvaged out of these. And also, there's powder in these, and we can salvage that powder. Now, although a lot of people would tell you not to do this, not to salvage some unknown powder, and it can be dangerous. But what you really need to know is, before you start this, is you need, if you're going to salvage an unknown powder, you need to know some sort of baseline to base a starting load off of. So if you just found a coffee can full of smokeless powder in Grandpa's basement, it might be interesting working up a load with those things. I guess the first thing I would do is I would use like a Magnum pistol to start working up my load. Something that's strong. You definitely would. You couldn't go wrong using something like this Red Hawk 44 Magnum. That's a good foundation to build a load with, right? And what I would do is, if I didn't know anything about the powder, the first thing I would do is I would treat that powder like the very fastest powder. So I would treat that powder like bullseye. And I would look up a load for bullseye and say a 44 Magnum, which would be a 44 Special even, would be about 5 grains of bullseye in a 44 Special. And I might take my completely unknown powder and start at 5 grains of that powder in a 44 Special case, or a 357 Magnum case. Maybe I'd start at 4 grains. And I'd see what that does. Now the thing is you may, if it was a really slow burning powder, you may stick the bullet in the barrel. So you got to be aware of all of those things. Or it might shoot okay. And the one thing that could really help you is if you own a chronograph. That would definitely be able to help you know what kind of velocities you're getting out of this unknown powder. But it seems like it's a taboo subject now, using unknown powders. But in my grandparents' day, they would have done this quite often. A lot of times there were lots of kind of unknown powders that were sold in paper bags at the hardware store, and you could go down there and they'd say, well, you could try starting off with this load. And old-time reloaders, they would know how to work up a load with a powder that they really didn't know anything about. And we can still do the same thing today. It's better, though, so when you find some unknown powder in Grandpa's basement, it can be, you have to be very careful if you're going to work up a load using that powder. You're going to have to start very slow. You may find out that it's a really slow burning rifle powder, and it's not going to work very good for, say, a pistol. And then you're kind of getting into more of an unknown territory. You got to be very careful, because rifles have high pressures. So you have to be very careful working up a load with that. But in our case here, we've got this 9mm, and we don't know what this powder is, but we know how much of it is behind a 117 grain bullet. And I've disassembled these, and there's 6.1 grains of Egyptian mystery powder in here. And the way I disassemble these is I use one of these things. It's a kinetic bullet puller, and they're pretty easy to use. They come with different sizes of these bullet holders, these aluminum bullet holders, and you put your cartridge in there. If I can get it, I'll put the cap on first so I don't blow it out. Let's see here. So you put your holder in there, you put your bullet in there like that, you tighten the cap down, you whack it on something hard. I just got a whole block of steel here clamped to my reloading bench. And we know the primers are bad, so we're going to throw those away. And then we've got a bullet and powder. And what I would typically do is I would first measure the bullet, dump these out into a container. So right there, I'm going to dump it into this little container, but I would take that powder and I would measure and see how much powder there is and see what weight the bullet is. And then I might go to a reloading manual and look at different loads for that for a 9mm. So this particular one, it's got 6.1 grains of powder behind a 117 grain bullet, and I'm going to look up different powders that are similar to that. Then I'm going to start, way below that. Say if I'm going to work it up on another cartridge. So, for instance, I worked up a load with this powder right here for 38 specials. And what I did was I started at like 3 grains of this powder. And I went out and I had 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6. Load one cartridge with different powder, with each of those different powder weights, and then go to the range and test them. I tested mine in, like I said, a heavy-duty revolver. I used a Ruger Security 6, I believe, for that test. And what I found is whatever this powder is, it doesn't like to be loaded lightly. So if I had under 5 grains of this stuff, or actually under 4.5 grains of this stuff, I'd get a lot of unburnt powder still in the case. But once I hit 5 grains, it cleaned right up. And at the time when I had the 357 out there, I didn't have a chronograph. And but I can tell you that, like, recoil-wise, it felt just like, like 4.5 grains of unique in a 38 special. So I thought, well, it's got to be really close to that. So I could say that, 5 grains of this mystery powder would shoot fine for 38 special. I also worked up a 44 special load, and I did have access to a chronograph when I did that. And I found out that, by working the load up, that 7.5 grains of this powder and a 44 special with a 240 grain semi-wad cutter was a load that shot at 890 feet per second, which would be a hot 44 special load. It would be a hotter load. In this Red Hawk, it's not hot in that gun. That gun could take a lot more pressure than that. But it was accurate. It's a good accurate load, 7.5 grains of this powder. It's, like I said, it's probably, whatever this powder is, it's probably a little slower than unique. It's just probably a hair slower of a powder than unique is. So, rather than throw this powder on my lawn, I'm going to reuse it. And in these rounds, there's over half a pound of powder. And, in the climate we're in right now, powders are very expensive. So the way I look at it, that's at least $25, $30 worth of powder. Why throw that away? Not to mention, all of these Full Metal Jacket 9mm projectiles that we can salvage out of here. And since we used our kinetic bullet puller, they all are just like brand new. Most of them don't even have a mark on them. So we could we have a 9mm, we can reload all of those. And I got all of that stuff for free. I wish I could just find, a brick of primers in the trash. But I just wanted to put this out there, if you're inclined to work with a powder you don't know anything about, there is methodology to work up a load for it. And I know a lot of people freak out about these things, but I think if you've been reloading for any amount of time, and you've experimented with different things, you'll understand that, you know, just because something's not in a book doesn't mean that it's not possible to do the thing. But you got to be careful while you're doing it. So I hope that was informative. Thanks.